Okay, so today I'm going to do a build description with some gameplay to show a Alpha Bridge Drain Tank video. Now this is more geared towards solo play. It does function perfectly fine in a squad, but this is geared towards having a good amount of survivability in solo play, being able to go into the dark zone to farm effectively, to be a little bit safer when running up against packs of rogues and things like that. It's not squishy by any means. It has good damage output when used properly, and overall it's a well-rounded build. So the first thing I'm going to be, noting about the build is 4-piece Alpha Bridge. There's a lot of customization options with that, so there are actually ways to make this build a lot better using 4-piece Alpha Bridge and 2 SMGs than I have. I use a Midas right now. I'll talk about that later, just for an easy, acquisition of sustained or self-preserved the talent and, the low requirements on those talents to activate them. So that's why I'm using the Midas, and I'll talk about that more in depth in a couple minutes. But the second thing to note about the build is I am using 2-piece blind, okay? So you could change out the 2-piece set bonus, while using 4-piece Alpha Bridge for anything that you want to. Final Measure is a great one if you don't like sticky bombs and you really don't want to die to things like that, or grenade launchers or flamethrowers. That'd be a really great addition. If you're going for something else, you're really confident in your ability to hit headshots, I would say you can switch out for 2-piece Sentry. That works as well. If you're really, oriented towards a sniping build, maybe 2-piece Hunter's Faith. There's a lot of different options, but right now I'm choosing 2-piece Blind because the pulse is really nice, the extra, critical hit damage, and I do use pulse heavily in this build, especially because the crit chance is going to pair nicely with self-preserved to create more of that life drain tank style effect. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about all the Alpha Bridge pieces, all my gear in general. Then I'll talk about my weapons, my skills, my talents, and actually show my character sheet. So first things first, I have this Alpha Bridge chest piece, really great stamina roll, coupled with 2 stamina mods, one with armor and one with skill power. I did need one mod to achieve the armor cap that had armor on it. Other than that, though, it's going to be mostly skill power, both firearms and stamina mods across the board. So the things to note about this chest piece are an armor roll in the major attribute slot and EDR, exotic damage resilience, in the major attribute slot. Those are both very important. I like both of those quite a bit, especially EDR on top of 2-piece final measure. But if you don't have 2-piece final measure, it is good to have 1 or 2 pieces with some EDR. It does help with sticky bombs. Ammo capacity is nice, not integral to the build at all. And then first aid self-heal is what I believe to be the most valuable skill attribute on any piece of gear. So that's a really nice roll. I really like this chest piece. I think it does wonders for the build. So then I'm going to talk about my gloves. These could be much, much better. Now, I do have 2 out of the prime 3. I have critical hit damage and critical hit chance with an amazing firearms roll, but I do not have SMG damage. Now, I would strongly advise anyone who's looking for a weapon DPS build to have the primary gun type damage on their gloves that they are using most often. So in this case, I would want SMG damage. I don't have that. I don't have the credits to re-roll it right now, so it's not quite optimized in that regard, but it does get the job done because I have 2 out of those perfect 3 major attributes and a great firearms roll. I don't have something in the skill attributes that I would like, but if you do want to play from a solo play perspective, actually having that support station down instead of a heal can be good because you can self-revive off of it. So, support station duration with a little bit of changes to the build might actually be helpful. So moving on to my holster, this is another really great piece in the build that's helping it quite a bit. I have a really great armor roll. I would always suggest rolling armor on your holster. There is no better major attribute on the holster unless you're going for strictly a pistol build, which not many people are, but in that case you might want pistol damage. But on the holsters, it's one of the primary ways to achieve the armor cap of 75%. A couple people ask me, are you armor capped in your builds? You don't really show it. And that is because I go for the armor cap. That's the first thing that I achieve in the build, period. If you don't have 75%, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage, especially in any PvP situation, and also the NPCs in the Dark Zone, are just really dangerous as well. So you want high toughness, and you definitely want that armor cap if you're going to be in the Dark Zone, period. So one of the ways to achieve that is through major attributes, and holster being one of those key pieces that needs it. First aid ally heal, if you're in a squad, that's great, but I would prefer self, from a solo play perspective, and it's nice. It does help the build a little bit, but it's not any, important portion. So really quickly, I'm going to talk about my pads before I get into the 2-piece blind. So with the pads, I have critical hit damage. I did not need to roll armor because I have rolled it on my chest piece and my holster. And, those 2 rolls are very high, and they do couple with the already really high armor rolls on the gear itself to get you to that hard cap. Just for anyone that has the question in their minds, the hard cap for armor as a number is 5354. Anything above that, you don't need anymore, and it's not going to increase your mitigation. So once you get 53, 54 or higher, you don't need to prioritize armor anymore at all. So one of the reasons why I didn't roll armor on my pads and I instead opted for 1 mod with armor is because if I were to roll, 300 or 400 armor on my pads, it really wouldn't help. It'd be 200 or more dead armor in the statistic, area. So that's not something I really needed to do. And I feel like the large chunk of critical hit damage, especially when using an SMG, is going to be very valuable to me overall. The minor attributes, nothing really of value to note there. And then first aid, ally heal, and the skill attributes, it's good to have, especially if you squad up even with just one person. It's really nice to have that, give them that extra boost whenever you're healing. So they will appreciate it. Moving on, I'm going to talk about my two-piece blind. So my mask and my backpack are both blind, 268s, good rolls on stamina, high skill power roll, 5,000, over 5,000, and pulse critical hit chance on the skill attributes. Now this is great. Not only does two-piece blind actually augment pulse in a positive way and give it the extra critical hit damage, the skill attribute on my mask gives it even more, so critical hit chance, and overall my pulse is going to be a huge damage burst skill that I can use whenever I need and then output a lot more than I would be able to otherwise. I would recommend having skill power on both your mask and your backpack. It's much more valuable than anything else you can roll there. Maybe if you really wanted to, and you're really going for this super SMG crit build, you can take skill power off of your mask and put critical hit chance there. That is the one thing that I would say might actually work quite well in your favor. You could also trade maybe the backpack for critical hit damage, but it's really up to you. I prefer skill power in both slots. That's what allows me to achieve 27,000 on my meter and makes my skills extremely potent, so that's nice. Moving on to my backpack, I have a blind power pack to get the two-piece blind bonus of 20% pulse critical hit damage. I have 6.9 thousand skill power in the major attribute slot. That's fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better roll. I have a really nice firearms roll and some burn resistance, first aid, ally heal again. All that paired together is going to make me a little bit more of a support style player in essence when I do have a four-man squad, because your heals on your allies are going to be much more potent, so that's nice. Burn resistance, not really relevant. I would prefer shock resistance, tenfold, but, you can't have everything perfect on every single gear piece. And then in the mod slot, firearms with skill power. Most of my mods are stamina or firearms. In this case, I believe firearms to achieve enough to unlock all of my gun talents with skill power. Skill power is one of the best things you can roll on a mod if you haven't already reached the armor cap, because, 1300, 1400, 1500, any of those numbers are going to increase your heal, your pulse, your sticky bomb, anything that you're using in the skill slots by a really high number, so that's nice. Moving on to my guns, I'm going to talk about my MP7 first. Now, I have deadly, responsive, and predatory. Now, predatory pairs very nicely with the drain tank aspect of this build. It has since been fixed. It used to self-revive you and heal for 14% of the enemy's HP, I believe, but now it actually heals for 14% of your own HP. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me in the comments. That's, to my knowledge, how the gun functions, how the talent functions, and it's still valuable, though, because when you're killing an enemy, you get that 14% health regen over 5 seconds, paired with the fact that you have self-preserved for every crit, healing 3% of the damage dealt with your strong pulse. You're going to be healing back a lot of your health and not actually relying solely on your heal skill, which is nice. So not only do you have your med kits at your disposal, you're going to have predatory proccing, you're going to have self-preserved proccing, and you can pop your heal on command, which means you have a lot of survivability. So this is something that this build I'm using to respond to a lot of people saying, can you do something that's more geared towards solo play or PvE content? This is my answer. It's really good when paired with someone who's running Sentry, if you have someone you can play with who has that build, but it does function from a solo play perspective, and it's not a primarily PvP build. It's much more geared towards PvE. So now moving on to the Midas, there are much better guns you could be using. So as a disclaimer, this is a 182 and it's a named weapon, and it's just a really easy way to get self-preserved, responsive, and vicious, which I think are all valuable talents. So if you have a Midas, go ahead and save it if you want to do a drain tank build. I think responsive's great. I do actually have it on my MP7, so doubling up on that talent is not optimized. You can have much better things. Perhaps, if you were to use the Midas and then have, an MP7 that doesn't have responsive, has competent instead or something like that. But there are a lot of different, synergistic talent pairings that you can go with. I did double up on responsive, so that's not perfect, but it's a really great way to get self-preserved. And another thing to note is that the gear score means there's lower actual main stat requirements. So as you can see, responsive here on the Midas requires 2,362 firearms to activate, but over here on the MP7, responsive actually requires 2,825. So having a lower gear score gun to pair with another of the same type with Alpha Bridge is a really great way to give yourself the versatility to put main stats into other categories if you want to. You don't need to by any means, but it's a possibility. So that's why I'm using a Midas. Now I'm going to move on to my skills and my talents, and then I'll show my character sheet. So I am using, of course, Pulse with Tactical Scanner. Because I have the two-piece blind, I actually get an amazing boost in my critical hit damage. Another thing is that the two-piece blind bonus of 20% is reflected in your meter here under the skill attributes and stuff. So you will see that 20% reflected. This should actually be 61%, but because I have the two-piece bonus, it's up to 81 on the meter, so it accurately reflects that. It's one of the few things about the UI that isn't bugged. So that's why I'm using it. It's really nice, especially augmented with your, your gear and the skill attributes on your gear. And then I'm using heal with overdose. Because of my very high skill power, it has a huge chunk of self-heal, 56,000 as you can see there. And because I have all the skill attributes for first aid ally heal, it's going to be 65,000 for allies, which is actually a significant boost. So it's valuable in a team play, objective-based style of gameplay as well. So moving on from there, I'm going to talk about my talents. I have triage. Now, when I'm in a squad, I always use this. You don't actually have to use this. If you're by yourself, I would say, you can use something else. Maybe, I don't know, maybe something like tech support if you really want to. As far as I know, that has been changed and correctly functions with Pulse now. So if I'm wrong about that, again, please let me know in the comments. I'm always trying to expand my knowledge of the game, but I do believe that tech support functions properly. So if that's the case, you can go for something like that. You could also go for something, let's see, from a personal play perspective, something like on the move. If you're going to be farming NPCs directly, that's something that works very well. I've been doing a bit of studying of on the move, and in PvP it doesn't actually function as well as I thought it did prior to this, but in PvE it still works wonders. So you can actually get the kill while moving, and proc that damage resistance, so it's valuable. So replacing triage is something you can definitely do. Another thing that you're going to want to keep is critical save. I think this is integral to any build just because it gives you that extra boost to mitigation when using a medkit, and you use medkits quite often. You get them as drops frequently, you use them at low health, all the time. They're actually your backup. You're primarily using your heal skill itself to actually get back to full health, but when you do get low, people are always popping medkits. Number one, because they proc faster, and number two, because you're also going to proc critical save. So I think that's a very important, component of the build. I run Strike Back. I think it's nice when you reach low health, you get that skill cooldown, and I actually notice it, helping me in fights. So that's why I choose to run it. And then I run One is None. Now this talent does have a little bit of a drawback. There are guns jamming now. I don't know if that's a new occurrence or what, but I have been noticing it more and more lately. So hopefully that gets fixed really soon. But it is still a great talent to run. When it works properly, the 50% chance of not consuming the bullet means more bullets in your clip. In my case, using an MP7, that means drastically increased clip size. I'm sorry, magazine size. I've been called out a few times for calling it the wrong thing. It is a magazine, not a clip. So it's a drastically increased mag size with the 50% chance. And by the time you're done, if you do land all headshots, it has a noticeable effect. You can drop enemies much quicker and sustain your damage output for longer periods of time. Not to mention the fact that you're consuming less ammunition, so that's very nice as well. So now I'm going to show my character sheet really quickly. Sometimes I forget to do this, and I'm sorry for that. Weapon damage is 11,000. Critical hit chance 29,000. With Pulse, it'll pretty much max out. Actually, in fact, it will max out with Pulse. Critical hit damage, 184%. I would like it up over 200%, but that's very difficult for me to get right now with the gear that I have. And headshot damage at 70%. Brutal on one of your SMGs would put this up over 100 or around 100, which is really nice. So especially if you pair it with two-piece sentry, you get an extra 10% there. Headshot damage could be higher. Someone that is confident in their ability to land headshots should definitely go for more headshot damage over critical hit damage. It scales extremely well. But those are the stats that I'm running. I'm going to scroll through really quickly. Anyone that wants can just pause the video and look at any of these other stats really quickly if they think that they're relevant. So once I've done that, I'm going to flip it over to some gameplay and talk while the gameplay progresses. Okay, so we're going to be doing some underground content here. I kind of stopped really playing the underground because I got really sick of it. And, while they claim that it's procedurally generated and every single dungeon will be different, I've noticed that the difference that they're talking about is maybe one of the transition hallways will be different, which is, okay, cool, you have a different hallway, but it's not really different enough to shake it up and into the, to the extent where I would want to keep playing and actually saying, wow, that's new, I haven't seen that. So that's why I really stay away from Underground. But from a PvE standpoint, especially with the patch, hitting PS4 very soon, that's really nice. And you guys will enjoy it a lot. So that's why I am showing this to hopefully, bridge cross-platform and give some value to PS4 users as well. So as you can see, I do have a strong heal skill. I am using that quite frequently because of my high skill power to stay alive. And but that pairs nicely with self-preserved and predatory. So I basically have a lot of different ways to heal myself at my disposal, and while this may not be the most powerful build in terms of straight DPS output, you're not going to run up and melt an entire enemy in half a magazine and then move on to another one and run and gun and flip through like it was in 1.1. That's not the case. This is much more responding to the request of people to say, create a build that functions better, maybe in the Dark Zone, maybe in PvE content, that has survivability and is more geared towards solo play. So this build is just as effective, in a squad as it is, by yourself. Maybe a little bit more effective in a squad because everything is in terms of buffs and debuffs. But this does function by yourself. So that's why I'm, making an effort to put out this Drain Tank video, even though it's not perfectly min-maxed, and also because it's a little bit of a different concept. Not that many people are using something like this right now, from what I can tell. There really isn't that much interesting gameplay here. It's not PvP. It's not really fast-paced or anything like that. But it's just a good showcase of, going through. You're not hitting super hard. You're not a super tank, and you're not a super DPS dealer. But when you are getting those crits, you can see my health bar regenerating. It's a really nice feeling, actually, when you pop pulse and then headshot an enemy. And you can actually watch your health bar go up faster than the enemy is dealing damage to you. So with this build, in the proper circumstance, with the right bonuses active, like right after you've pulsed, and if you are landing headshots, you can face tank. It's something that a lot of players do anyways, so I thought putting out a build that, does well to pair with that playstyle might be a good idea. You can face tank enemies, not 3 at once, never 3 at once, or 4 at once, but one-on-one against an NPC, like a sniper right here. I could totally face tank this guy, absorb the damage, heal it all back, especially if I paired it with having just killed another enemy and having Predatory active for 5 seconds. A lot of different mechanisms to heal, and it's really nice. So the gameplay is going to go on for a little bit longer. I'll try and talk about some announcements in the meantime. So we will have a shirt at 10,000 subscribers. We're headed straight for that number. I feel blessed to have achieved what I've achieved so far. And thank you to everyone who's been supporting us. There will be a credit reel at the end of the video for the patron supporters. Thank you. A huge thank you to the guys that got the ball rolling on that. It means a lot. It does seem like it's garnering a little bit of, notoriety and success. So that's great. It's going to help us start streaming much better. So right now we are going to start streaming very, very soon. In fact, possibly even tonight will be our first live stream, myself and J Castro Goat. So we are upgrading our equipment to do that better. Right now I can't actually stream in the highest definition. I can only stream at 720p, and I'm hoping to upgrade that. So the Patreon page is a really great way to allow us to get the equipment to upgrade the stream, to upgrade the quality, to do this longer, to produce more content for everyone at a higher caliber. So the Patreon link is down in the description of the video. I'm not going to do a pop-up with the link here. Right now in the video, but it is down there for anyone that wants to support. Another thing is that the Facebook community is growing just amazingly. A lot of people have been messaging me and saying thank you for starting that Facebook community, because they actually found a squad that they can run with now and complete content. Some people that even had prior to this point quit the game had actually come back because of the Facebook community, and they said, now I have a squad, now the game is fun. With 4 players, the game is much better. So while I will continue to produce content for solo players as best I can, I do urge anyone that's out there who plays solo to look at the Facebook community, maybe not even this one, maybe someone else's community, but just, try and find a squad. The game is best played with your friends, with people that you can joke around with, laugh with, makes everything better. So please check that out if you'd like to. The link is in the description as well. We have an IM messaging app for people that are looking to, really quickly group up with players on the fly. That's taking off as well. It's going really great. So a big thank you to the people that got that started. Lucas, a big shout out to you for spearheading that project and doing a really great job with it. So I appreciate that a lot. I can't really think of any more announcements to make at this point. Like I said, we will be starting live streaming and things like that. So tune in if you want to see us playing. It won't be for super long periods of time, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time. And I will try to play with some subscribers more often, especially in those live streams. Also, another big shout out to Disturbed Gaming. There's going to be a link to his channel below in the description as well. He's actually helped me quite a bit with the whole live streaming, picking up that process, and it's been invaluable. It's a lot of information that goes a lot smoother when you have someone who's done it before giving you that help. So I actually truly appreciate that, and I wanted to refer you guys to his content. If you like my content, you'll probably like his as well. If you don't, that's fine, but he's been very helpful to me, so I definitely want to give him proper credit for the help that he's given. Outside of that, I don't really think there's much more. As you can see, the build does function. You're not shredding every single enemy that you see, but it's fun. It works. I like regenerating. In some other MMORPGs that I've played, I do, drain tank videos. In World of Warcraft, I loved healing mechanics for certain characters there, so I always like doing drain and things like that with a warlock. It's been a long time since I played that, but I will try to expand to some more games, maybe far down the road. But right now, continue the great coverage of the division, hopefully. And a big thank you to everyone that's been helping so far. So I'm going to cut it there. We do go on to finish the mission, get some mediocre rewards. Not really worth it in the end, but the build functioned as intended. And overall, it was a positive, fun experience. So hopefully this build has been helpful to some people. If you think it's good, let me know in the comments. If you think it's bad, let me know what's better in the comments. Please keep it constructive. Any feedback that you have, if well laid out, I'll give you a shout out if you do really, re-educate my point of view on the division. If you bring something to my attention that I wasn't previously aware of, I will definitely, shout it out because I love learning new things. So I'm going to cut it there. Thank you to everyone who has supported so far. It means a lot. And as always, have a nice day.